Well, good morning, Shelter family. What's going on? It is Pastor Jay here for your Monday, May 25th, 6 at 6. Can you believe May is already almost over? Amazing. I will say it was so good to see those that came out yesterday that were able to come out at church. Man, what a blessing for me. And then to see so many people still participating online in worship at your home. How cool is that? One thing I'll say is through this entire pandemic, and as the church doors have pretty much been closed, somehow, some way, we've been graced by God's blessing to stay together. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart from that. Well, you know that we have been doing these 6 at 6s basically since the stay-at-home order has happened, and we're going to continue on all the way until we are done with this concept and these filters of the idea of is it living? We've been asking, Chris and I, and many others have joined us along the way about really putting ourselves through this filter to determine if our spiritual walk is alive, if it is thriving, if it's flourishing. And there are things that must happen and again, the filters that one must go through to really determine if something is alive, if it's healthy. And so last week we talked a little bit about the idea of nutrition, proper nutrition, how something must be fed for it to be alive and to be thriving. But today we're going to think about, and this entire week, we're going to look into the idea if something has sense, right? Now, there are different senses for all different organisms, right? And not having all, but for human beings, we know that we have to have sight, smell, touch, taste, and hearing. And as we were getting into this, it really started me to think about really the idea of the Holy Spirit alive and active inside a believer. You know, I believe the Holy Spirit is the ultimate sensory tool. And when I say tool, I think that kind of even belittles the Holy Spirit in many ways because it is a person. It is a part of the triune being of God, and it lives inside of you. And so what I want to ask and what I want to challenge right off the bat this week is for you to live cognizant of having the Spirit lead you in all ways this week. That started me to think as we kind of go into this about a time just recently when I was training to go into scuba diving. It was a gift that someone gave me, and we were planning on a trip to go down to Hawaii for our first time. And for the first few days, I had to go through my training in a pool and go through all the online stuff. But then they put us out in Lake Pleasant, and boy, was that a different experience for me. And what I mean by that is that there was a bit of panic, and of course the instructor wanted us to go through this. But the reason why there was a panic is because on our first dive in Lake Pleasant, they took us deep enough, and the water was muddy enough that many of my senses disappeared completely, right? I had no ability to smell because of the mask. Obviously, I had no ability to taste. My hearing, because I was in the water, was impaired. But then when my sight went bad, I have to tell you, me myself started to panic just a bit. It was a good learning exercise again for scuba diving, but it really began for me to think about something and a question that I mentioned a few years ago when I preached on the Holy Spirit. And that is this question: how would your life look different if the Holy Spirit wasn't inside of you? And this is a hard question for some of us to answer. And the reason why this is hard for many of us to answer is because I think many of us are not tapped in to listening and being led by the Holy Spirit and his sensitivity to the Holy Spirit on a day-to-day basis. You know, something in Galatians chapter 5 and verse 25 says this: since we're living by the Spirit, you and me have been born again by the Spirit of God. Let us follow the Spirit's leading in every part of our life. In every part of our life, in our play life, in our work life, in our worship life, in our coming and going. The idea is that the Spirit is leading us. It is telling us things. It's pushing us into all truth. It is guiding us. This is what separates, I believe, Christianity and the idea of being a disciple of Christ from all other religions. For all other things, there is an alive and active Spirit in you that is very sensitive. But the question is are you sensitive to that Spirit's leading, right? Are we people that on a day-to-day basis bow our knee to that small voice inside that directs us, This is an interesting thing because the Holy Spirit also is a fire. It is an empowering force in us that gives us courage beyond our natural self, right? This is all about sensitivity. This is all about senses. And so this week, as Chris and I talk, we're going to be really focused on the concept of how the Holy Spirit leads in moments of crisis, in moments of discouragement, in moments of great victory. The Holy Spirit is inside the believer to accomplish things in the will of God that might not be accomplished if we didn't have this. And so I want you this week to focus on the idea of following the Spirit's lead, staying in step with the Spirit, as Galatians 5:25 says. It's our call for those that are born again by the Spirit of God to actually be sensitive to the voice. This is what sense is all about. You and me have been equipped with the greatest sense tool in all of the world. Hey, I love you guys. Have a great Monday. I'll look to talk to you tomorrow just a little bit about some other aspects of sense. We are excited that we are opening up. Please make sure that you've circled on your calendar June 7th. Love you guys. Have a great day.